Amazing. Already starting to see people come through.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone.
I want to know where people are calling in from. US, the UK. Do we have
Yeah,
any
send
different?
where you are in the world at the moment. If anyone else is in Australia and it's 1 a.m. for them as well, please tell me.
Alex, Melbourne, legend. Got Vegas. Hey, Jordan. What a great mix there. Hey, Jasper.
I always love like doing these webinars because you're like, wow, everyone really just chimes in from all over the globe. It's so cool.
Brazil, incredible. Yeah, there's something pretty fulfilling about seeing such a widespread.
Absolutely. Cool. I might kick off introductions. I know it'll be another minute or two before everyone kind of joins, but hey, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us wherever you are in the world at the moment for today's Creative as Currency webinar. This is the second installment of our Magic Brief and Tracksuit partnership, which is all around which is a conversation centered around how modern marketing teams can actually better integrate brand and performance. And today we're excited to dig specifically into the creative strategy and the thinking behind creating work that actually drives both brand and performance. So before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes from me. Please pop any questions that you have into the Zoom Q&A function. So we've left time at the end to go through as many of your audience questions as we can. And also a gentle reminder to just keep the chat really kind and respectful so that all of our speakers and your fellow attendees have a really good time today. So a quick overview on how the actual session will run. So we'll start with a quick introduction both to Magic Brief and Tracksuit and also introduce our amazing agency speakers that we have with us today. Then we'll hear two mini masterclasses, one from Query, one from Darkroom on how they're actually approaching creative strategy right now. And finally, we'll wrap with a roundtable of questions with everyone all together and then open up the floor for your discussions. So, a super quick intro to me. So, my name is Maddie and I lead marketing here at Magic Brief. And I'm very, very thrilled to be co hosting today's session with the wonderful Michaela from Tracksuit. Mick and I have had lots of conversations around this topic together. So, I'm very, very excited to share this all with you today. A little intro on Magic Brief for those of you on the call who might not already be familiar. So, Magic Brief is a creative strategy workflow tool that is purpose built for performance creative teams. And this is with the understanding that your platforms like Meta and TikTok are moving away from that dedicated, detailed audience targeting and towards creative now doing the targeting. So, this means that creative is now one of the most important growth levers that brands have today to tell their story at scale and be able to unlock new audiences. And Magic Brief helps creative teams actually pull that growth lever. So, we bring together ad creative research, including competitor tracking, AI powered creative analytics, and also creative briefing in one place. So, your team can actually move faster, make smarter creative decisions, and ultimately scale the creative work that works. But I'll hand over to Mick to do a little intro on Tracksuit.
Thank you, Maddie. And I think very complementary to what Magic Brief does. For Tracksuit, we're a brand tracking platform that's always on, agency friendly, and very much built for the pace that you actually work at. So we're fortunate that we work with over 900 brands and hundreds of agency partners across 7 different markets, like the wonderful Samir from Query. And we actually have a shared client called Huck, who we'll dive into a little bit today. So our product, built by marketers, strategists, creatives who actually know the chaos of agency life. And we like to think about Tracksuit as this combination of a strategist's brain and a SaaS product team. So it's fast, visual, collaborative, and built to give you instant clarity on your client's brand, their category, and the competitor set at large. So the goal here is to help you give or get real-time insights that actually allows you to turn brand data into smarter strategy, better briefs, and award-worthy work. I think for us, like we're here to create this common language for brand growth across strategists, suites, creatives, media planners, and clients to communicate and understand the value of brand. And for us, our big vision is we want to have Tracksuit brand data in every brand room or every boardroom around the world. So with that, if you head over to the next piece, Maddie. It is my absolute pleasure to be joined by two fantastic agency partners today. So first, we've got Samir from Query, a full funnel media agency working with modern consumer brands. And then from Darkroom, we've got both Lucas and Ashay. So Darkroom, full service digital growth agency with a sharp focus on performance creative. Now, both of these agencies will be sharing. I just want to say as well, like it's a real privilege to have these agencies on the call. And we're going to have both share their fresh take on how they're thinking about creative today and the role that it actually plays in integrating both brand and performance. So, with that, I will pass things over to Samir to kick off our first session.
Thank you. Thank you for the very kind introduction also. So, Maddie, I'll actually just jump over to the next slide and kind of kick us off here. Hi, I'm Samir Balwani. I'm the founder of Query. We are a media buying agency. So what we do is we do full funnel media buying, everything from linear TV and out of home through to your paid search and paid social on the day-to-day. But for this conversation, we actually sit in a really interesting position. We don't do creative, and so the question becomes, if we don't do creative, and as Maddie said, creative is the single most important lever for us these days. How do we actually impact our clients and their successes? And that's because we're given this really unique view in that we can help them understand what data they need and to create assets that actually drive performance but build brand awareness. And for us, brand awareness becomes really important because it impacts all of the campaigns that we do. Uh, Michaela said it really well, this concept of a shared language. And Maddie, if you go to the next slide, I'll explain why a shared language is so important. Uh, Commonly, there's a brand team and a performance marketing team, and we like to sit at the intersection of those two, helping our brands actually run brand campaigns that drive performance. And so when we create a shared language, and Tracksuit's one of those tools that we use, it allows us to actually scale our brands and drive profitable growth. So for us, creative is central to paid media. It builds awareness, drives action, and really helps brand and performance growth. Maddie, let's go to the next slide, actually. I think the important part here is looking at how we look at creative. So I think a lot of people will look at creative and go, all right, well, we've got an asset. It's a social ad. It sits there, and we're going to create a million variations of it, and we're going to test everything. And that's not how we try to look at creative. We really try to look at creative of what are we trying to do, and how can we test things consistently across the funnel. So for me, when I'm looking at the funnel here, so awareness, consideration, investigation, usage, all the way through to preference, we want to make sure that we have ad campaigns and creative that engages with people on every step of that journey. So how are we building brand awareness? What is resonating with consumers top of funnel and getting them really excited? We want to know that is that working or not. Same once we hit that consideration set. Are we standing out against our competitive set? And then when we're in that investigation stage, are we giving our consumers the right information that they need? Product benefits, specs and features, all of those things need to sit together. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of brands do is they look at their creative as one creative set and don't create this matrix of, okay, I've got this creative concept and it needs to fit in every stage of this funnel and be consistent across the funnel. And when I say consistent across the funnel, I don't mean the language needs to be the same, but it does need to hang together. For a lot of brands, that's brand verbiage, brand colors, brand imagery, and so really kind of seeing how everything fits together is key. It is truly a puzzle that needs to be put together. When you do it well, you really impact two key sets of KPIs. So we like to look at our overarching brand KPIs and commercial KPIs. Commercial KPIs are obviously important. You want to be making money. They tend to correlate with your brand KPIs. So the things that I like to look at are brand engagement. Are people actually engaging with the brand itself, not the creative? Not everyone will engage with the creative. The question is, are people engaging with the brand? Are you getting more followers, comments, engagement across all your social profiles? Social listening lifts are people actually talking about the brand more. This one's really easy, organic search lift. So if you're running paid search campaigns, there's a trick that we do. If you're running a brand search campaign, you can look at your impression share on your brand search campaign, take the inverse of that, and you have the full impression share, total impressions available. Monitoring that gives you a sense of, are people searching for you or not? And then finally, post-purchase surveys and tracksuit brand tracking. These two are quality for us. Post-purchase surveys give us a really good understanding of where are people finding us. Things like podcast show up in post-purchase survey a lot, influencer, endemic partnerships, and then Tracksuit, obviously, we use month to month is really helpful for us understanding, are we actually impacting each part of those journeys? So I'll give you an example. If we build awareness, but no one's going into consideration, then we know that we have a fault in the consideration set creative, and we need to fix how we're kind of helping people through the journey. And so that's where this level of clarity becomes really important. Commercial KPIs are easy. Everyone knows how to track those, your platform metrics, Google Analytics. Let's not focus on that. Let's talk about why. So, Maddie, we can go to the next slide. So why does all this matter? Everyone says you have to invest in brand, you have to invest in brand. But why? Anybody in media this year has heard about rising acquisition costs, rising CPMs. It's been consistent. What are we doing to kind of combat this? Why are media agencies still in working if creative is the most important lever? Well, diversity and CPM management is the second piece of that. And so for us, we're really looking at all of the media channels and looking for more cost-effective channels. Everything like Spotify and podcast audio is really big for us right now, as well as linear TV and connected TV. What ends up also happening is when you invest in brand awareness, it actually offsets the rising CPM costs. And the reason why is because performance marketing is a math problem. CPM through your click-through rate, through your conversion rate equals revenue. And so when your CPMs are rising, if you don't improve your click-through rate and your conversion rate, then you end up in this cycle that you can't win. And so if you go to the next slide, Maddie, when we invest in brand awareness, we see a commensurate increase in our click-through rates and conversion rates. And that's because people are primed to want to engage with the creative that they're already aware of. CPMs for brand awareness tends to be cheaper. Your consideration set ad CPMs are a lot higher. And that's because people are competing for those consumers that are ready to purchase. But if you are competing against all of the brands in that consideration set, and you are already aware and somebody has a preference for you before even reaching that stage, you're more likely to win. And so if you can improve your click-through rate and conversion rate higher than your CPM is increasing, then you're able to continue to scale your campaigns and offset this challenge that a lot of brands are dealing with right now. So what do we say? What does that mean? Brand positioning and awareness is a true competitive moat. It allows you to improve performance marketing and differentiate from the competitor. And so for us, when we're working with our brands, and Hook's an example here, they recognize that there were certain themes that they really wanted to win on. They wanted to be known for quality. They are a fishing apparel brand. And so winning on these things allowed us to then, when we are in the consideration set, continue to scale beyond their competitive set. Let's go to the next slide, Maddie, because I think that one, it'll give you an example. So I want to show kind of how that comes to life. If we know that there are certain key themes that we want to perform well for, we can run ad campaigns and work with the team to get ad creative that speaks to that. So we wanted to talk about classic comfort and stretch. We wanted to talk about natural performance. So putting these kind of messaging in our upper funnel where we are talking about our products, but in a brand forward perspective, allowed us to break through when people were ready to purchase. People weren't always ready to purchase on these ad creative. The goal was for them to actually just engage with. And then the next step here would then be to do a consideration campaign that drives. So if you go down to the next slide, Maddie, we can kind of show how that comes into performance. So for the male shopper, men tend to shop features and benefits, not look and feel. And so this is a men's ad, so you can see lots of features and benefits. And so if we have already built this beautiful brand creative that shows an elevated experience, once somebody is actively searching for the product set and the feature set, we can create creative and sequence in the creative to allow this to be really effective. Brand messaging has already been sold. They're sold on the brand. Now we need to sell them on the product. And this is how we win in that journey for sure. So for us, this is where we end up using Tracksuit a lot. Brand awareness is helpful, and understanding brand awareness is key. But how do you actually identify what those statements that you want to stand out is important, is more important than anything, because um, general brand awareness, if people just knew the brand, that is great, but people also need to know what the brand stands for. And so that's where these brand statements end up becoming really valuable for us. So we want to know when a brand, this is commonly, we recommend this to all of our clients, great performing products. If it's a fashion apparel, we'll ask for comfort and then value for money. Those are always key. The thing for us is we want to understand how do we improve this against the competitive set, because this is what moves the needle in our performance marketing. So when people have a preconceived notion around this, it makes it a much easier for our performance creative to perform well. So this is another client of ours. They tend to go on sale fairly often. And so you can see their day-to-day value for money is a little bit lower. And when they go on sale, they end up performing really well. They're actively trying to improve this metric, and will continue to do that over a long period of time. So let's talk about some tools that we put together to actually help make this come to life. So like I said, consistency is really important. And so one of the tools that we help with our clients is really understanding how do you run ad campaigns where you can test things without losing your brand visual aesthetic. And so we create a deck, we call it a brand image deck. We put all of their top performing ad creative, just the imagery in throughout the deck. And then we tell the creative team, we've got this block here for your image here. And it is fairly subjective, but it works really well. The creative can put the image that they're thinking about in the middle, and they can see, is it in line with what's been performing, what's engaging, or is it out of left field and feels disjointed? This actually really helps us stay pretty consistent as we're kind of engaging with our brands and making recommendations. Our team will also use this to make sure that we're making recommendations for creative that are aligned with the brand and not kind of out of left field. And the reason for that is because if you use imagery that's not consistent, you lose all the benefits of kind of what you've built over time. And so there's a lot of value in staying consistent and we work with a creative agency of ours, and they say they have this term of outside shadow. The more consistent your brand is, the bigger the shadow that you each ad creative makes, and that's what we're going after. When I was in American Express, we used to do this all the time, and it's one of my favorite things. If you've got a conference room, you can use a digital build a whiteboard also, but print every ad creative that you have, put it on a wall, and just look at it. It can be your direct mail pieces, your catalog pieces, your social pieces, your organic social posts. Put all of your ad creative on a wall and just look at it and make sure that it's consistent and cohesive. It gives you a sense of where you're straying, and then take it one step further and do it with your competitive set, and see if you guys all look the same and talk the same, or are you actually differentiated and breaking through, both from a messaging standpoint as well as a creative standpoint. One of the things about marketing that's really interesting, sorry, Matt, I'll go back to that one more thing on this one, but one of the things that's really interesting about marketers is they tend to follow people that perform well, and we're all copying from one another. And so at one point, your what has worked well for you won't continue to work as well because everyone's doing the same thing. And so this forces you to figure out when people are catching up to you or when you're copying someone else, and help you break through into a new direction. So for us, when we're looking at brand and performance, the strategy here is really time, process, and consistency. It's not a growth hack. It's not about doing something instantaneous and getting great results. It's about being consistent and seeing small changes over time. So that's where time, process, and consistency is the key for success here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Samir. I'm going to hand over to the Darkroom team now. So I will switch over to the next slide and let Lucas and Ashay take it from here.
Awesome, Maddie. Thanks so much. And Michaela and Maddie, thank you for having us. Really appreciate it. And for everyone who showed up, really appreciate your time. We're excited to chat more about kind of the work that we do every day at the agency. Next slide here. And Samir, thanks so much for your thoughts as well. I think they were a great primer for what we're going to talk about. So I'm the founder and CEO here at Darkroom. My name is Lucas. I'm joined by my colleague Ashay, who's a director of growth at the agency. Basically, the director of growth function is meant to manage, a subset of our portfolio media investment strategy, and that touches on everything from paid social, paid search, CTV, linear, like Samir was talking about. But we kind of have a different approach at the agency where we really go deep on creative, particularly like short form video and the ways that it generates demand. And so we'll take you guys through an example today of how we kind of create these feedback loops between an organic social and paid media program to drive the most demand in a relatively quick amount of time. In terms of the agency, next slide here, Addie. So we are an omni-channel growth agency. We're based in New York City. I like to think of us as like a consumer revenue accelerator. What I mean by that is like our team is able to be dangerous across the customer journey. So we help our brands grow direct consumer programs. We help them grow their Amazon and marketplace businesses and also at retail. Kind of those three major channels that matter from a sales perspective. I think this vantage point is really important because over the life cycle of a consumer business, those sales channels matter in different types of way at different points in time. And in terms of which ones are profit centers for the business, we always want to be driving demand to those profit centers. The example we use today is really going to focus on like a D2C Amazon business, which we see a lot of at the agency. And so it's in crafting creative programs that actually make sense for both of those business units and how to kind of like measure performance there. Next slide. And just to legitimize us really quickly, and I'll get back to kind of our perspective. We work exclusively in the consumer space. It's about 95% of our business. We work with like very brand-driven consumer businesses, like some of the ones that you see on screen. So we're like constantly in the weeds, in the hand-to-hand combat of like, what does it mean to generate performance assets that like meet a certain design standard or communicate value for a brand or grow brand awareness or however you want to say it. These are kind of this is a problem set we've dealt with from day one, and it was one of the reasons why we've made our media teams like integrated directly with performance creative. So on all of our media accounts, we're delivering consistent creative, high volume creative to better effectuate performance. Next slide. And so our whole philosophy at the agency, we really don't subscribe to the brand versus performance dialectic. Like we don't, I don't, we kind of view it as all marketing is performance marketing. If we're going to invest in a particular activation or activity, we want to see measurable ROI on that. And the toolkit today across Tracksuit, MagicBrief, MMM tools that we leverage at the agency, like it gives us pretty good understanding of like how certain activations are going to drive business performance across sales channels. And like the customer journey today is so complicated where we can't be so myopic as performance marketers and expect one-to-one performance. So we have to get more creative. And so what our team has done is focused a lot more on like the activities and the teams that we need to build in order to better drive growth for our clients. We focus on the systems, and we know that the systems lead to the outcomes that we want to see. I love this quote from Ogilvy. Like I always come back to it. Your role is to sell. Don't let anything distract you from the sole purpose of advertising. When we develop advertisements, like we want them to drive performance. We want them to deliver the types of outcomes that, everyone at the P&L level wants to see. Next slide. And so, I mean, the typical thing that I see when hiring performance marketers at the agency, or when just looking at net new clients that come to the business, is like, I kind of evaluate programs based on this Venn diagram of like, when I look at the creative asset program from organic social to the paid media program, I kind of evaluate it based on, the two circles of like taste and direct response. Most creative programs that we look at, I think they don't even fit into one of the two categories. They lack taste, and they actually lack performant assets, which is just not where you want to be. And then I think depending on the type of creatives or performance marketers running the program, you skew in one or two directions. Where if you over-index on creative and design, you get nicely designed assets, but they actually don't communicate the value propositions of the product relative to the competitive set. And then if you're skewing, way like ugly ads or funny ads, humor-driven ads, you kind of miss this like beautiful spot in the middle where you kind of have a certain level of design standard that you're communicating through each asset, and you're also doing a really good job of selling your product or service. And that's kind of that sweet spot that we like to be in. This is kind of a side note. I'm of the opinion that working with creatives is the most essential thing, most important thing on your media program today. Like, I would much rather work with a creative team that is comfortable going through the creative process, iterating, delivering output, creating assets, getting more shots on goal, and educating them on the performance paradigm than working with a performance marketer who can actually effectuate change when it comes to media investment. And so that's just something that, if anyone here is building creative or they're building media teams, you're trying to figure out how to get more leverage or throughput on your advertising. I'm obviously looking at the creative, but I'm looking at the creative team and the people who are actually delivering output for me, because that's what results in winning assets. Next slide. And then, it's important to contextualize like the business life cycle. Like, at different stages, different sales channels matter. And then at different stages of the business, different uh, creative assets matter, or creative programs matter. So like, all the way from like, if you're a pre-launch brand, you're obviously, the type of brand investments you're making are in like your packaging or your identity. And then for a very mature business, you're thinking about CTV, DSP, out-of-home placements. There's so much more optionality there. Now, this sweet spot that we focus on for those like 7, 8, even 9-figure businesses, like, is this organic social to full funnel digital flywheel. We really kind of zero in on this because it's where we can be the fastest in terms of delivering net new creative assets and also delivering better performance. And we view both of these things as, the breeding ground for us. And when I say both of these things, I mean organic social and paid social as the breeding grounds to be able to, A, generate demand, which is building brand equity, building brand awareness, and then also capturing that demand too and driving sales both on D2C and on Amazon and other marketplaces. And that's exactly what Eshe is going to take us through right now in terms of like an example with one of our portfolio brands.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. As Lucas mentioned, we talk about this idea of all marketing as performance marketing. And I think when we start to unpack that, one of the important things to consider is the intersection between organic and paid social. And if you follow Darkroom, we talk a lot about the importance of organic social. And the reason we talk about it is because we've unearthed this finding over the past year or so, that organic is really your testing ground for validating winning pieces of content. And one of the brands that we work with that I think does a really good job of understanding this organic to paid feedback loop is a brand called Sculpt. They're a D2C pottery business. Their products are really popular for gift giving, date nights, and they've amassed about 1 million followers combined across all their socials, generating somewhere in the ballpark of 500 million views on all of their content over the past couple of years. And I've shared a couple of examples here about oh, I just realized we're on the wrong slide.
Yeah,
Sorry
no
about
worries.
that.
Next slide, Maddie. I'll come back
Next
to this
slide,
too
Maddie.
as you're talking
Yeah, no,
through.
that's fine. But I've shared an example here, which you'll see on screen about a couple of winning pieces of content that we identified on their organic. You'll see that there's a reel here with over 10 million views, thousands of comments, and working with their team, we were able to repurpose that same style of content for paid, making a few intentional tweaks to the core concept. And we ended up with 2 of the best performing ads that they've run in the history of their ad account. And so I think this really is a powerful unlock, which if you haven't been thinking about it, is something I'd encourage you to think more about with your content. Testing content for free on organic, identifying winners, and then using paid to scale. Next slide, Maddie. Cool. So when we talk about winning content, I think it really boils down to a few key ingredients. First, we've got quality. Quality really comes down to focusing on content that outlasts trends and thinking about how can you make creative that's relevant 2 to 3 years from now. You see a lot of people hop on viral memes, hop on TikTok sounds, and I think those are all great, but you really want to be thinking about creating content that has a timeless nature to it. And one exercise I'd recommend for everyone is use a tool like MagicBrief, go to their Insights tab, find some brands that you really like, and look at winning ads for those brands that have been running for 6, 12, maybe even 2 years, 6 months, 12 months, maybe even a couple of years, and try and dissect why that content has such a long shelf life. And you'll start to be able to identify the common themes and patterns that are consistent amongst winning content. Next, you have quantity. This is really your distribution. So the ability to iterate off positive feedback signals, the ability to use creative strategy tools like MagicBrief as kind of a co-pilot to help you develop new concepts. And then one of the things I'd recommend if you're producing a lot of long form content is investing in good video editing. People who can extract those clips from long pieces of content to produce a high volume of short form video. And finally, you have consistency. Operate with a long-term perspective in mind. It's important to follow this process with a lot of intensity and for an extended period of time to create winning evergreen content. Next slide, Maddie. Along with winning content, I think it's also really important to think about winning funnels. A lot of marketers are familiar with funnels when it comes to audiences, when it comes to understanding a customer journey. But I want to share with you guys a winning funnel that we've identified when it comes to content at different stages of the funnel. So in your top of funnel for performance marketing, we really look at this as short form content. Your Reels, TikToks, YouTube Shorts, your organic program. It's really important to know that content at the top of the funnel doesn't need to talk about what your mission is at a brand or what you're trying to sell. People just need to know that you exist. And that is really the opportunity with short form content. In the middle of funnel, you see a lot of people that understand algorithms, understand virality, and as a result are able to succeed top of funnel, but they don't know how to monetize that attention. So that's really where paid ads start to come in this middle of funnel. Now that people know that you exist, do they know what you're about? And can you get them to align with your mission and values? And a couple of ways you can succeed here is through content distribution. Similar to the Sculpt example I talked about before, repurposing winning organic content across paid, and also UGC, partnering with content creators and creating hyper-focused UGC for different audience personas. And finally, bottom of funnel, a lot of people think about this as retargeting ads on Meta or something like Google search, but I would say that bottom of funnel is really about the question of what are you doing to establish a deeper level of relationship with the customer, which all comes down to building community. So the brand I talked about earlier, Sculpt, they're doing a great job of building community. They're offering free pottery classes for new customers and establishing formal relationships with their content creators, making them a part of their ecosystem. So again, it's really important to think about user retention and experience at the bottom of the funnel. Next slide. And finally, play the long-term game, or said differently, start with the end in mind. Every company needs to become a content company over the next 3 to 5 years. And hopefully we've provided some useful frameworks here that you can start to implement and think about to develop both a high quality and extremely strong distribution with your content.
Ten minutes. We crushed it. I love it. Nice work, Eshe.
Awesome. Cool. I might bring everyone back online now and we'll come through and do our roundtable discussion. While we're doing this as well, if anyone has any questions, either specifically for the speakers or just to ask everyone, please drop them into the Q&A function. Have already seen some come through, which is awesome, but if there's any that you're holding on to, please drop them in now. So, starting off with the first question here, in our saturated, AI generated, fragmented media channel era, what actually makes a piece of creative stand out? I might direct that to Ashay and Lucas if you guys have thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is another one of those like timeless questions where, you know, we're using a lot of AI generated assets and tooling within our performance creative teams. And I think what you're starting to see is like there's two things that we kind of solve for there. One is increasing volume of testing. Actually, I think there's like three use cases. One is increasing volume of testing. With AI generated assets, you get the opportunity to, I think, like just have more dexterity with the brand that has less production assets on hand. So you can kind of just like, you know, pull things out of thin air. Um, and then I think the variety in the type of creative assets that you get is also enhanced. So if anyone here is messing around with Midjourney and GPT-4o and integrating those into your content programs, you're just getting like different types of stuff that you weren't able to get before. And for the right types of creative directors and designers in a media program, that's like a very welcome tool. It's been a really nice unlock for our performance creative teams. With that said, though, I don't think it's a solve for like creating a great asset. If anyone here has been messing around with the AI generated UGC assets that have been like pretty hot in the past couple of months, you know, those are not really like they're great for permutations, but like I think the consumer is like still very discerning today. So it's just not a catch-all. Like just because you're leveraging these AI tools doesn't mean you're getting a great piece of creative. I still think you need to do the legwork into understanding the product, understanding the different types of customers, and then going out and producing that and getting winning ads. Ashay, I don't know how you would add to this.
I think the only thing I'd add is kind of directing people back to that slide I talked about earlier. You really want to be thinking about producing content that has a shelf life of multiple years. So you see like brands like Airbnb and Coca-Cola and American Express, you know, brands that don't necessarily need to invest in performance marketing, right? But they're still able to do a really good job of creating content that is timeless and that is evergreen. And I think in the AI generated era of content, it's important for people not to forget that and kind of go back to the Ogilvy fundamentals, so to speak.
Love it. Okay, next question here. Oh, is it letting me switch the slide? 1 second. Having a little bit of a tech issue where I can't switch the slide was bound to happen, team. Please bear with me. Oh, now that's too many slides.
Not bad, Maddie. No technical glitch until 40 minutes in.
Oh no. Okay, let me stop the share for a second and then go again. Please hold. Awesome. Let's go again. Sweet. Okay. Many marketers are stuck in this brand versus performance mindset, especially when it comes to creative. What do you think is the line between being on brand and being experimental? I know, Samir, you touched on this a little bit in your presentation, so I don't know if you have anything more to add to this question as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one is really interesting because people use being innovative and experimental as a way to go off-brand real far. And I think you have to have a really good understanding of what the fringes are and what you're experimenting on, right? the brand is not something you want to experiment with, but the messaging and the way you present the brand could be what you're experimenting. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes marketers make is experimenting for experimenting's sake versus having a real reason why they're experimenting. What are you trying to solve for? What are you trying to understand? And that'll help you have an understanding of, are you on brand or are you just trying something new? And so I think just even starting there is step one.
Cool. All right. So Tracksuit gives brands real-time signals on how they're perceived by consumers. How should that actually shape your creative strategy? Mick, do you want to jump in?
Yeah,
Mick,
happy
can
to.
I take start here, please? I
No,
just
you
just because
can.
we what you will find is that I am a huge fan of tracksuits because we use it so much and it has made such a big impact on a lot of our brands. And so for us, the hardest part of creative, especially so as a media agency, we get to do a lot of really broad campaigns. We just did a Conan O'Brien podcast takeover. We've done a lot of TV ads. And so what ends up happening is you get one go at it. You don't get to really iterate when you're doing those things. And so you have to have a really clear perspective on what you're trying to accomplish and in a really big way. And so that's the clarity Tracksuit gives us. That's the clarity this creative gives us. So now let's say we work with a partner of ours and we're running TV ads. We do a lot of sports TV, so we're doing Masters or US Open, anything like that. And we've got a 6-week flight. We might be able to change the creative once through that. And so we need to have an understanding of in the first 3 weeks, are we seeing impact on the messaging that we expected? And if not, let's change the creative. And so we'll work with our clients to say, what's the statement we're trying to fix? What are we trying to impact? Are we seeing that change? If not, let's make sure we have plan B. We don't always have plan B, but at least you know what the impact of it was. And so really moving these statements is valuable. And so for us, you know, Lucas, you said something really well that everything has to tie into performance. And so moving the statement isn't enough. It needs to move a statement that we know impacts performance. And so that's what you want to make sure that you're doing here. And that's why we find this so valuable.
Very nicely said. I mean, better said than myself. And I think to all the echo Samir there as well, like these real-time insights actually provide proof points for your creative strategy instead of just relying on gut feel. Like I think we're really guilty as creatives, marketers, and agency leaders of living in this echo chamber where we have a perception of our brand and there's a delta between that and the actual reality. Like you as the agency partner are not the customer. The CMO you work with isn't the customer. Carol in the comment section, she is not the customer or doesn't actually speak for the entire market. And I think too many businesses are still relying on gut feel decision making or one-off antidotes or like cherry picking social media feedback to direct creative. Like that is not strategy, that is guesswork with a slide pack. Now, when you compare that to getting real-time representative feedback from active consumers in the category, like your buyers, your considerers, and even those who are not in the category yet, but who will enter in the future, that is going to shape your creative strategy in a way that moves beyond just gut feel. And so I think for us, like, it's about making sure that we're thinking about this in the context where it's not reliant on vibes, the agency, creative work that you've won, vanity metrics, etc. It's about looking at the data and understanding, like if this shows that you're invisible to a lot of your category buyers, you need to build mental salience. If people know about your client's brand but are still choosing somebody else in the competitor set, focus on building distinctiveness via brand perceptions. And Matt, if you could just zoom in there on that example, I think it's really important as well. Like it's about using this data to identify the challenge that then informs the creative strategy that responds to that. So this is the Liquid Death dashboard in Tracksuit, and it's a really good example. Like most of us will know Liquid Death here. It's a very polarizing drinks brand that runs incredibly distinctive brand marketing campaigns. I think their recent one was with Alf Cosmetics, where they sold Corpse paint, limited edition makeup, basically. It was very, very clever, very creative. And we can see the payoff in Tracksuit's data is that a lot of unique brand associations are actually coming through from the market. So of those people who are aware of Liquid Death, this is what they think about them. And we can see things like unique, energetic, innovative, fun, and weird. And so you can use this in real time to understand, what are my points of parity? What are my points of difference? And how can I double down on the creative work that is driving that distinctiveness? You can also see in that funnel piece as well, like they've actually shifted both awareness and consideration amongst the category of US consumers. So simply put, like, use the data, identify where in the funnel you need to approach or layer over your creative work, and then use that to set the strategy. Okay.
All right, here. So kind of building on that question, I guess, what are the telltale signs to know if your brand creative is actually working?
So yeah, I can jump into this one first. You're also welcome to
Go for it. Yeah, start it off.
So I think, simply put, it moves the needle. Like, that is the backbone and the foundation of this. Like, not in vanity metrics like likes or awards, but in real-time data that basically proves you're moving your brand metrics. Like, if your clients' campaigns aren't nudging or shifting the dial on awareness, consideration, preference, and sentiment and the perceptions that you're trying to drive, that campaign has not been effective, or that creative work is not building future demand for the category and for the client. I think one really strong way to benchmark this is, has your share of category actually increased versus your competitors? Like, is your core message of creative coming through in the qualitative data that we're actually building from the market or extracting from the market? Like, if you're at a similar level of awareness to your competitors, but you've got much lower consideration, you need to, or what it tells you is, you need to spend much more time simply driving brand awareness and actually becoming better or well more liked amongst the audience. And so you can use that to identify where in the funnel is leaky or where's working and where you can double down. So coming back to that, I think by measuring those top of funnel metrics and seeing them grow, future demand, this concept of future demand, becomes really measurable and manageable, and an asset for clients that you get to anchor this conversation in year after year. Again, if you zoom in a little bit there, Maddie, on the Airbnb example, their latest TVC campaign aims to acquire more users of the platform, and specifically it's targeting work travelers and people looking for those nature-focused stays. So we can see that they are actually second in their category when it comes to the brand statement as the first place they go to for accommodation. Now, that is only second or only behind Marriott Hotel, which is a 68-year-old brand. So again, when we're trying to determine, is our creative working, being able to look at these top of funnel metrics, I think goes a really long way in understanding whether you're being effective or not.
Awesome. Cool. So tools like MagicBrief are able to surface patterns across high-performing creative. How should marketers use data like this to inform or validate creative direction? Happy to kick this off, and then Ashay or Lucas, if you want to jump in here. I guess first, kind of wanting to take a step back. If you think about performance marketing, just by nature of the channels that you're working with, it demands such a high velocity of creative that it becomes this incredible way to expand your surface area of learnings at a much lower cost than, I guess, more premium brand-led channels that a lot of brands won't actually be investing in, particularly early stages of the business. And for me, I think that's the real opportunity there with creative testing. It's this like creative pattern recognition at scale, because you have this way where you can consistently test and learn how your marketing is landing with audiences in real time and adapt that creative based on that data and based on that feedback. And MagicBrief helps teams to compile this data super visually through various different types of analysis that lets you both zoom out at a macro level. So looking at macro trends across the ad account, like maybe messaging styles that are working or visual formats that are resonating, creators that are working inside the account, because we actually have this ability to automatically tag and group ads together based on these creative variables. Like even over here, it's looking inside one of the ad accounts at who are the top performing creators that are actually driving results. But you can also zoom in at an asset level, like over here, and see how individual pieces of creative are performing and how people are engaging with them. And it's super important, I think, for any creative team to do this kind of analysis, not just against your like hard performance metrics. So obviously looking at your ROAS, looking at your CPA, but also those softer engagement signals like your hook rate, your hold rate, your click-through rate. Are people actually watching and responding to the creative that's in front of them. And I think MagicBrief is really well posed to help teams answer that. And for me, it's like the ability to surface all of these creative themes across hundreds of creative tests backed by actual data. It actually helps teams validate like which creative territories are worth doubling down on. So maybe that is a particular messaging angle or a headline that you could reuse, or it's a hero campaign visual that did really well on paid that then you can use across different other marketing collateral, like a billboard, for example. And also being able to spot those micro trends, those micro patterns in terms of the small iterations and tweaks that you can make to existing creative to improve those results. Like maybe you have one ad that has this amazing hook score and the first couple of seconds is really engaging. Can you take the essence of that winning hook and apply it onto a creative that didn't perform so well? I don't know if Lucas or Ashay, you've got anything more to add to that too.
Yeah, I think these like data sources and inputs are obviously critical to honestly any creative function that you're building within your marketing team. The things that I look at are the dynamic between volume and quality. Ashay touched on this earlier. Like we want to make sure that we're hitting a certain um, output from a volume perspective across organic social and paid social, just using those two channels since we've been talking about them. And I think in order to do that, you need to be pulling references, you need to be scripting, you need to be coming to the table with ideas consistently. And to have tools like MagicBrief to help actually like surface those references is really critical to just being able to perform at a pace that's fast enough. So I think for me, one part is volume. Once you start hitting that standard level of output that you need to satiate either your ad spend or the impression goals that you have on the organic side, then I think you just need to start over-indexing on quality. And that's when the finer metrics across signal, hook rate, hold rate, click-through rate, whatever it might be, are really important to understand the efficacy of the ads. And so that's kind of how we leverage some of these tools. There's a whole bunch of different tools we put in the workflow. But for me, like the volume versus quality dynamic is really important when you're thinking about building your team.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that quickly. I'll present that kind of high level thesis for why MagicBrief, especially when you're an agency. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that I would get from like a new client that's coming on to work with us is that, maybe they worked with someone before where they saw that a lot of creative was being tested, but they didn't really understand why. They didn't understand what were they iterating off of. Or they saw that there's a lot of creative running in the account, but they didn't really understand what exactly was being tested because of naming conventions. And this is really where MagicBrief becomes your like creative strategy co-pilot as an agency. The ability to iterate off positive feedback, the ability to bring more people into the creative strategy process. For example, a performance marketer might be familiar with hook rates and hold rates, but a designer or a video editor wouldn't really know how to interpret those. So the ability to just show them that, hey, this hook is on the scale, it's green and this is red, which means that this hook's good, this hook's not as good. Right away, you're bringing in a bunch of new people into the process. And ultimately, that is how you increase output and increase quality, and then ultimately improve performance.
Cool. So taste matters when it comes to performance, as Lucas, you very eloquently put in your presentation earlier. But what does this actually look like in a high volume creative workflow? And how do you hold the bar with taste when speed is such a priority?
Yeah, I think taste is such a amorphous word. It can mean like so many different things to different people. I actually I don't like the lack of specificity with it. Um, but I think what you need to drill down on is like what are the different, because like what are the different types of taste that we're looking at? I think for most founders, and it depends across industries. Like I think taste to like a fashion founder, it's totally different than like a CPG business. So I think there are certain categories where it's very easy to solve for like taste on an asset, and that just means like meeting a standard level of design that is sophisticated and that meets the brand guidelines of the businesses that you work with. And so that's something that we solve for with literally every client we work with. And that's just, I think, a function of having great designers, video editors, creatives who understand the brand, right? Then I think there is taste within an asset, and that is much more of a creative challenge. Like when you see an ad and you're like, wow, that was cheeky or great or funny, like, it's something that evokes emotion. That's obviously like much harder to solve for. Um, Now, because we've been talking about performance marketing, I think, and with a lot of direct response teams, like taste in many instances, like I was mentioning earlier, just goes out the window. It's just like a question of like volume, output, ads. And to me, when I see programs like that, it just speaks to a lack of a creative leader that actually knows what they want within the organization. And people trying to outsource that to agencies or to other people. But I really counsel brands to like, you need to have that within your own team, like that DNA, and then you can leverage external partners to kind of produce for it. And when we come in and we're starting to understand a brand, um, there's a volume game like we talked about, and then there's really delivering great assets. For the first, once we're operationalizing a team, all I focus on is like volume, volume, volume. Yes, we want to meet a certain like level of standard with the design, but over time, creatives who are working on a business will really start to understand a brand better. So again, volume first, and then over time, iterating on the creative to make sure that it's delivering to that taste metric in a better way.
Cool.
Sorry.
We've got a few questions in for the Q&A now, so I'm going to open this up to the floor. The first one coming in that I'll touch on. So what would you say is a good timeline to test creatives before deciding they are not worth investing energy into anymore?
I can take that. It's such a amorphous answer, and so take this with a grain of salt because it really depends on what the goal of the creative is. Performance creative, you can test relatively quickly. The further top of funnel you go, the longer you have to run it. When you're working with MMMs, there's a concept of ad stock, which is the timeline, the time lag from which you see an ad creative to the time it will impact the user. And so that's kind of what we try to use. There's a spreadsheet that shows like common ad stocks by channel, and you can kind of use that as a understanding of how long you should be running creative to see before you see impact from.
Awesome. A very practical one. Any tips of creating killer creative for a brand that is in a less sexy space? So something like financial services, insurance. Anyone got any thoughts on that?
I'd love to take this one. This is my favorite place. Like on a personal level, I'm a market research. I've got a background in consumer brands. I had no desire to work for a B2B SaaS company. Like my model of that is stodgy, boring, not sexy, not it. End of the day, like you're still selling to humans who want to connect with something emotionally. And I think like start particularly in the financial services category, draw inspiration from people doing it really, really well. Monzo Bank in the UK, like the single most creative bank in the financial services space. It shows up like a consumer brand with humor, fun, taste, and entertainment. Up Bank in Australia, vibrant, fun, playful. Like there are financial brands out there doing this more effectively than even some lifestyle brands. So it's definitely within the remit of being able to do it, even though traditionally it's not seen as a sexy category. Draw inspiration, test, play, have fun. You're selling to humans at the end of the day.
Okay, can
Great.
I just add one more thing to that one? So for financial services, they touch every piece of your life. So think of creative beyond creative, things like sponsorships, like Amex does the Tribeca Film Festival sponsorship. Those are really cool things that get your message out there. It's not always a social ad. Sometimes it's like a bigger engagement as well.
Awesome.
Really.
Might direct this one to the darkroom guys, as I know you guys do a lot of work with Amazon and Walmart and kind of those other channels. Do you believe that there are advantages to directing customers straight to a company's website for final sale rather than relying on large seller platforms, particularly in terms of effectively tailoring the brand message? Ashay or
Lucas, I'll
Luke?
let
Yeah, I mean, we see this all the time in beauty. Like, you mean like something like a Sephora or potentially Amazon. right? I'm just going to assume that's what the question is. Um, yeah, I mean, we see this in a lot of different ad programs where, either that's mandated by the retailer for like co-opted ad spend, or it's just a light test that you run. Like in Amazon, they'll actually give you credits based on your spend directed to those platforms. So I think there's a place for it. As far as like effectively tailoring the brand message, I'm not exact. I think the best place to tell your brand message is on site if you're doing a good job and to have continuity within the customer journey. I think just for some product categories, it makes sense to, because of the dimensional weight issue, to like drive people to Amazon. You see that all the time in F&B where like the unit economics just don't really make sense for direct to consumer. So your profit center ends up becoming Amazon. Um, in beauty, I see it much more as like a Sephora throwing around their weight, trying to add more traffic to increase sales. And I think the Amazon thing is a lot more related to dimensional weight, unit economics, and just like customers wanting to buy there for the product category. But I think generally speaking, if you want to have continuity with the messaging and the brand experience, doing it on your own site is the best place to do it.
Awesome. I might just add a last one in off the top of my head just because we are at time. But I guess for anyone who wants to jump in on this, of course, people and humans are still at the center of kind of like what you said before, Lucas. It's like it's about hiring that creative team. What are the traits that you're actually looking for in the marketers that you want to bring on to these creative teams? So, what kind of questions are you asking in hiring, and what's the profile of like this ideal creative superstar?
Okay, so this is for me, I'm imagining,
Or
because we
anyone,
have
I think anyone jump in.
we hire a ton of creatives at the agency. I prefer to work with creatives, and that's just to say that's nothing against the performance marketers in the crowd. I just think the superpower of the future is like, can you create? Can you create assets? Can you create short form video? Like, because I think it's only through the process of actually making you can be critical. You can know what good actually feels and looks like. And so that's kind of what I look for. Now, I say that having built up a ton of resources on the P&L, financial, and performance marketing side to help educate performance marketers. But for instance, like on my own marketing team, it's all designers. I only hire designers because I want them doing output as well as analyzing things. So I look at do they create content? Do they design? Can they do copywriting? Those three things for me are the superpowers: design, copy, short form video.
Yeah. I don't know, Samir, you have a final note to end on that as well.
So we don't hire a lot of creative people, but we do get to work with a lot of creative people. And I'll say the creatives that we work with the best, and honestly, even on our team, the single most important question is, are they curious to try something different? If they are kind of stuck in the mud and just continue to do the same thing over and over again, we're not going to see a lot of success. And so just this like constant curiosity and passion for the product and just marketing in general is absolutely, key.
Awesome. What a lovely note to end on. So, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We've got some little links on the screen in case you want to check out Tracksuit or you want to check out Magic Brief. You can get in touch with our teams today. Thank you so much to the Darkroom team and Query for joining us. I hope everyone got a lot out of this conversation. I know that I definitely did. We'll be sending a recording to everyone who registered after this. So, within 24 hours, it's 1 a.m. So, I'm probably going to go to bed. But thank you so much, guys, and have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world.
Thanks, team.
Thank you. Bye.
You
Thank
guys.
you.